Well, hello everybody out there, and welcome to another random video. And yes, like I said, I want to make a little series about Edward Gorey, and this is basically the second video of this little series where I talk about some of the books that I have. And in the first video, I talked about this box called the Fantod Works, which contained 9 out of those 116 books that Edward Gorey had published. And yeah, now I want to take a closer look at this really nice and beautiful box, the Vinager Works, 7 volumes of moral instruction. Now, I do have to mention that in the past there have apparently been other Vinager Works boxes, but they usually only contained 3 books. So I don't know why this box now contains 7, if it's some kind of a quote unquote best of, or I don't know. But yeah, it is worth mentioning that there is apparently another box that looks pretty much exactly like this one, but it's not called the Vinager Works. I think it's called the Lugubrious Works or the Lugubrious Library or something like that. And the books that are included are slightly different. I think some of them are also included in the Vinager Works, but some of them aren't. So it's yet again another mix. And the thing is, with the Vinager Works, just like in the Fantod Works, the books are in English, but in the Vinager Works, there isn't an extra book with the German translations. But like I said, I don't know if those translations are usually included in the box or if they have to be purchased separately. But yeah, the books are in English. But in the Lugubrious Library, it's very weird because the book covers or the titles are in English, but the books themselves are in German, which is the reason why I don't want to get this Lugubrious Library box, because I want those books in the English original version. And I really do have to say, when I compare the Fantod Works with the Vinager Works, I really love the Vinager Works. I really like them much better than the Fantod Works. Not that the Fantod Works are bad, but I think the Vinager Works really contains what I would call the quintessential Edward Gorey. It contains some of Gorey's greatest works and most successful books and most famous books. And I want to go through those books. Of course, I try once again to go through those books in chronological order. And it all starts with Edward Gorey's most successful book, or the book that is most well known, The Gaelic Rum Tinies. Now, this is like a little alphabet, or I think Edward Gorey used the term abecedarian. So those are little ABC rhymes. But yeah, the theme is the death of children, basically. So I already made a video, like a full video of this book in full HD. So you can also check out this video, but I'm still going to read the first ones for you, just for this video, just in case you haven't seen the other video or don't want to watch the other video. A is for Amy, who fell down the stairs. B is for Basil, assaulted by bears. C is for Clara, who wasted away. D is for Desmond, thrown out of a sleigh. E is for Ernest, who choked on a peach. F is for Fanny, sucked dry by a leech. G is for George, smothered under a rug. H is for Hector, done in by a thug. So, yeah, really kind of funny rhymes, but really morbid. And with this book, Edward Gorey basically wants to show us also the, I don't know if he wants to show us the meaningless, but also he wants to show us the absurdity of life. And sometimes some things are kind of hilarious, even though they are really sad and really tragic, like the death of children. Because let's face it, life is this really precious thing. You know, I mean, nothing is more important than life, and everybody, because I don't believe in reincarnation, everybody only has the chance to be alive just once. And that's it. You know, and if your life ends very early, of course, it's even more tragic. But, you know, there are kids that die of the stupidest things. You know, there are kids that die because of a peanut, because they are allergic to them. I mean, there's also adults that die of allergies, but yeah, there are also kids that die. And, you know, even though it is so sad and tragic when something like this happens, you can't help but think of how bizarre and how absurd it is. Here you have this really amazing, really precious thing that is life, and this life is being snuffed out by a peanut. It's just sad and bizarre at the same time. Now, the second book is also, I think, a very well-known book, and it's also a very nice book. I also like it very much. The Insect God by Edward Gorey. Now, this is a little story about a little girl that got kidnapped by human-sized insects. Now, let me read you a little bit from this. Oh, what has become of Millicent Frestley? Is there any hope that she's still alive? Why haven't they found her? It's rather ghastly to think that the child was not yet 5. The dear little thing was last seen playing alone by herself at the edge of the park. There was no one with her to keep her from straying away in the shadows and oncoming dark. Before she could do so, a silent and glittering black motor drew up where she sat nibbling grass. From within came a nearly inaudible twittering. A tiny green face peered out through the glass. She was ready to flee when the figure beckoned. An arm with 2 elbows held out a tin full of cinnamon balls. She paused a second, reached out as she took one, and lifted her in. The nurse was discovered collapsed in some shrubbery, but her reappearance was not much use. Her eyes were askew, her extremities rubbery. Her clothing was stained with a brownish juice. She was questioned in hopes of her answers revealing what had happened. She merely repeatedly said, "I hear them walking about on the ceiling." She had gone irretrievably out of her head. So, yeah, like a really dark and macabre story, but also very interesting. Then we come to, I think, maybe my favorite book of Edward Gorey. I mean, I said that L'Heure Bleue or L'Heure Bleue was kind of my favorite because of the use of the blue color and how beautiful it looked. But I think I really admire this book more, The West Wing. Now, this is like considered to be Edward Gorey's silent book because it doesn't contain any words, but there are various different books by Edward Gorey who don't have any words, as you have seen in the Fantod works. You know, for example, Leaves from a Mislaid Album also doesn't contain any words. So, yeah, it's not the only book that doesn't contain any words. The great thing about The West Wing is how beautiful it is. And so I think I really agree with Mark Derry or Mark Deary. I don't exactly know how to pronounce his last name, but he is the guy who wrote the biography about Edward Gorey, Born to be Posthumous. And he said that The West Wing is basically Gorey's silent book about death and life after death. And I kind of totally agree with that because there are so many things in this book that point to this direction. I mean, he said even the name itself, The West Wing, kind of symbolizes that because you know the West is the land of the setting sun, you know, and when the sun goes down, it's kind of like descending into the afterlife and things like that. So I really agree with that. I think he also said that Edward Gorey said in an interview that the West Wing is where you go after you're dead. And I really think that this is true. And this is why I really love this book so much. Because when you look at those empty hallways and sometimes empty rooms, there is a certain feeling that I don't know how to describe that feeling. It's kind of like, in a way, it feels very quiet and very calm. So you feel like you're resting of some sort. It's really calm, but sometimes you also get this kind of eerie feeling, you know, the feeling that the rooms are haunted of some sort. And there's all those various different things that, of course, like most Edward Gorey books, that raise questions. Like, for example, the room in picture number 3. Now, why are there 3 shoes? I mean, usually people only have 2 shoes, but why are there 3? I don't know, you know? But it's also interesting that basically everything about this picture has something to do with the number 3. You know, there are always like 3 rows of windows or 3 rows of glass in the window. There are 3 shoes laying around, and it's the 3rd picture. So the number 3 is apparently very important in the Bible. So whenever something is important, it is given the number 3. So 3 is kind of a symbol for something that is divine or something that is complete. And yeah, it's kind of a very important number. So maybe Gorey has been playing around with that number in this picture. I'm not sure, but there is a possibility, definitely. But you have a lot of really nice, awesome pictures. Also, that picture where there is some kind of a ghost looking through the window, and another picture, there is a person lying there in the room. We don't know what happened. We don't know if he's asleep or unconscious or dead. So again, a lot of story, a lot of questions that are being raised right here in this book and in some of those pictures. But one of the pictures that I like most is picture number 6, with the man sitting there. And I don't know, it's so calm and quiet, and I just love this picture, and also the fact that he has his eyes closed. I don't know, there's something about this picture. And upon further inspection of this picture, I also noticed something where I don't know if Edward Gorey did it intentionally or if it's, again, just something that just happened by accident and Gorey didn't even notice it. But if you look at all those lines on the wall, or the lines that Gorey used to draw the wall, if you look closely, those lines, they also form something that looks a little bit like a cross, from Christianity. So this could be kind of like a little subtle hint that this person isn't actually alive, that this person is dead and therefore maybe a ghost. I don't know. It's a possibility, but maybe it's also a little bit far stretched. I'm not really sure, but there is a possibility. I think what's also very important is the last picture with the floating candle, which is probably held by some kind of a spirit or ghost or whatever. This picture is supposed to show us how fragile life is and that life doesn't go on forever. So, first of all, it's very easy to extinguish a candle flame. It's very easy to just blow it out, even with a very, very light blow or very light breeze. But even if you don't blow it out, at some point the candle will be burned up and the flame is extinguished. So it is definitely something that is supposed to remind us of our own mortality. And it is also very important to point out that, like I already said, all the pictures in this book are numbered, except for this last picture with the candle. This is the picture that only carries the letter U. The letter U is often used for the word you. It is definitely telling us, okay, just like this candle, you are also going to die one day. So it's a really nice, really awesome book with absolutely gorgeous pictures. You also have to think about how much work goes into something like this. Now, you might say, well, those are just pictures. There aren't even words. He didn't even think about anything. He didn't even write anything. But there is a lot of work that went into it, because there was this video on YouTube where Gorey talked about that he made a picture and that one of his cats jumped onto the table and knocked over the ink, and the ink spilled over one of those pictures that Gorey had been working on for 2 weeks. And yeah, this is just crazy when you think about it. I think there are at least 30 pictures in this book, probably even more if you count the cover and also one of the other pictures that says The West Wing by Edward Gorey, with that figure standing there in the door frame. And yeah, over 30 pictures in this book. Now, when you think about that, it takes at least 2 weeks to make one of those pictures. It took him over a year to make this book, to draw all those pictures. Now it's a lot of work. It's really insane. Now this brings us to another really nice and I think also very well known book from Edward Gorey, The Evil Garden. And this is like a really, really interesting book because, first of all, like I already mentioned in my video about the Fantot works, and also if you know Edward Gorey, you would know that he often used different names for his books or for himself. You know, he used made up names like Odgrad Weary or things like that. But here he used another name. He used the name Edward Blutig. Now, here in this book, Edward Gorey is once again playing around with language, and in this case with German language. And Blutig is basically the German word for bloody. At the beginning, it says, The Evil Garden, Edward Blutigs Der böse Garten, in a translation by Mrs. Regera Dowdy Regera Dowdy with the original pictures of O. Müde. Now, the crazy thing is, Edward Gorey is trying to kind of create the illusion that this would be an English translation of a German book written by a German author, and the pictures are again by another painter or artist called O. Müde. And Müde is also yet again another German word, and it means sleepy. And yeah, he also claims that the translation was done by a certain Miss, or no, it's not Mrs., it's Miss Regera Dowdy. Now, all those names are Edward Gorey, and he just made them up. And this isn't a German book, and it's not a translation from a German book. But it's again one of those reasons why I want the English originals and not the German translations, because something like this would probably be completely lost in the German translation. I mean, in the German translation, you couldn't say that this is the German translation of an English book from an English author is if the author has a German name. So yeah, it's one of those reasons. But yeah, it's very interesting. Alas, my translation of perhaps Herr Blutig's most famous work appears on the melancholy occasion of the 75th anniversary of the last time he threw himself out of a window. What? It's so strange. The Evil Garden is basically about some people that enter a garden and then bad things happen. And again, he's also playing around. Like I said, he claims that the drawings are done by a German author named or by a German artist named O. Müde. And in the first picture, we can see that because at the entrance, it says Eintritt frei. I mean, it's in reverse because we're looking at it from the back, but it says Eintritt frei, which is German for free entry. How elegant, how choice, how gay to think one doesn't have to pay. There is a sound of falling tears. It comes from nowhere to the ears. Some tiny creature, mad with wrath, is coming nearer on the path. A foot inside a striped sock protrudes from underneath a rock. The gorgeous flowers have a smell, that causes one to feel unwell. The Reverend Mr. Flogless Cloth is being nibbled by a moth. And then a bunch of other strange things happen. And yeah, also people kind of disappear and die, and even children are getting carried away by some sort of moths. So it's a lot of crazy things that go on here. Hence the title, The Evil Garden. But I really love it. Then the next book is also a really nice book. Again, a lot of mysteries about the title. I don't know why it has that title. The Chinese Obelisks. I don't know why it has that title, but okay. And it's yet again one of Gorey's ABC or Abecedarian books where he is working with the letters of the alphabet. And it could be a book about Gorey himself, because the protagonist in this book kind of looks a lot like Edward Gorey, you know, with the fur coat and everything. A was an author who went for a walk. B was a boar who engaged him in talk. C was a canvas and crossed it with dirt. D was a dog who appeared to be hurt. E, an Egyptian with things from a tomb. F was a fire in a top-story room. And then it goes on and on, but there are certain things that definitely show you that there is something up. For example, later, Q was the question he asked of a stranger. R, the reply that his life was in danger. So there are a lot of things, a lot of nice and funny things that are happening. G was the glove that he dropped without thinking. H was a house whose foundations were sinking. And it's really nice and funny. I mean, just look at that woman and how she is just waving as the house is apparently sinking. So yeah, it is a really nice book. Of course, I'm not going to tell you how it ends, because it is one of those books that really has an ending. You know, usually many of Gorey's books have some kind of an open end. So now the next book is also a nice book, but I don't like it that much, but it is a really nice book. The Ospic Bird. So it's basically about a very weird bird that is capable of doing certain things that usually birds aren't capable of. And it's living with this man. An ospic bird flew down and sat on Amblus Fingbe's bowler hat. It had not done so for a whim, but meant to come and live with him. On Fridays, Amblus played the flute. The bird now joined him on a lute. The top of the sagava tree was frequently where they had tea. They sometimes strolled beyond the town in time to watch the sun go down. So it is a really nice little story about basically kind of like a friendship between this guy and this bird. I mean, there is also an incident where they fight when they try to play double solitaire, whatever that might be. But it's like, again, one of those surreal kind of things, like Edward Gorey. He loves surrealism and, you know, a bird that is capable of all those different things and playing a double solitaire, which is kind of like a paradox. Gorey always loved those kind of things. And I also really like those things. And then we come to the last one, and this is probably my least favorite one from this box because there isn't really that much to it, at least as far as I can tell. The Untitled Book. And again, Gorey used a different name here, Edward Pig. And yeah, it's basically just like nonsense words and then we have a bunch of little creatures dancing around, and there isn't really, it's basically almost about nothing. Hippity whippity, oxyboric, flappity flippity, saragashmoo or saragashmoo, thip, thap, and so on and so on. If there is something hidden here or some kind of a hidden meaning or whatever, it is lost on me. I don't know. If you have an idea, you can tell me, but I don't really know. Maybe it has something to do with life and the circle of life, how it begins and how we live and how we are happy, but in the end everybody dies and everybody goes away. Maybe that, but I'm not really sure. So yeah, that was the Vinegar Works, 7 volumes of moral instruction by Edward Gorey. And so far, I really love it. It's my most favorite collection of Edward Gorey books. I don't know how many other collections there are, but like I said, I am going to make another video. So it's like a little series. So there is definitely going to be another video within the next days about another box or another collection of Edward Gorey books. So stay tuned and check out my channel. And for those of you who subscribe to my channel because of those movie reviews that I did, I'm definitely going to do more movie reviews. I am thinking about what I'm going to do next because there are so many of them and I have to figure out which ones are the best. So there's definitely more stuff to come. So yeah, check out my channel, check out also my playlists. If you don't want to scroll through all my videos, I have playlists. So that's it. I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one. Bye.